So welcome everybody to the Backyard Peace Project. I'm Philippa Scott, and I am bringing a topic today that is of personal interest to me. This has come up a little bit recently, and I wanted to bring it to the rest of the team and see what your thoughts are. The question that's been kind of popping around, and I think a lot of leaders, parents, business owners, coaches, you know, all sorts of different people grapple with is the difference between resilience and capacity. And some of you know my keynote is when resilience curdles into resentment, right? That idea that sometimes we're resilient for so long that we end up stuck and it becomes something that we are not we resent, and we often burn our lives down around us because of that resentment because we've been resilient for so long. But when I look further into the word resilient, it actually means to be able to recover, to reset, to come back, to respond to events, and then to drop back down into calm and homeostasis. And this is how my life works, and I'm good, and I just motor along. And a lot of us are stuck in resilience, but that's stuckness. It's not actually being resilient. It's about having a life that doesn't actually fit who we are and what we are doing. And then looking at the word capacity, it's completely different again, right? Capacity is about how much can we handle right now. And that can change hour to hour, week to week, month to month, season to season within our lives. And I think a lot of us get confused, and a lot of us think that just because we have capacity for one thing one day, that we would automatically have it for the next day. And then we confuse resilience and capacity, and we feel like resilience is something that we should wear with a badge of honor and we should always sit there and all the things. And I just think there's a culture around that right now, particularly in professional circles. It's demanded of mothers and fathers often to stay in this space of just giving, 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 giving all the time without any reset. And anyway, I just wanted to bring that, and I'd like to know, for you, some of your thoughts around how do you differentiate those two for yourselves? What do you do to make sure that you are honoring your capacity whilst being able to bend and be resilient and do those things so we're not fragile but we're resilient, but how do we, then take care of ourselves at the same time? So throwing that out to the crowd, I'd love to hear your thoughts on what works for you. What do you do?
Well, I work a bit in this space with real estate agents
Oh,
because I think to survive in real estate, you have to have a certain capacity for resilience because there is so much, it's a roller coaster of emotions constantly. And so that resilience is there. But the more that I get involved in mindset and looking at people's energy systems and how they actually operate, it's possible for all of us to pretty much operate with our energy in certain areas for a given amount of time. But when you stay in that energy space, that's not your natural energy too long, then that resilience burns out your capacity, you lose it very quickly. And in fact, if you stay in something that is taking all of your energy all the time, you will, science shows us, you will actually burn out. There is no, there's no maybe, there is, you will burn out. Whereas you can stay in your energy source and you can do that, you know what it's like, you're in the flow, you're in the zone, you're really enjoying it. It feels like you're plugged in. And there's capacity to keep going for as long as you want to. So I think it's also understanding your energy, where your energy, behavioral energy comes from. And if you're in an area where you know that's actually not your captain energy and you're going to have to struggle a bit harder, know that you can only stay there for a certain while or your capacity is going to really drop.
so awareness, it sounds to me like being self-aware, but also understanding. I'm reading the book by Angela Duckworth at the moment, Grit. it's quite interesting. And she talks about gritty people, but also it's not just about talent, it's not just about resilience, it's also about interest and passion and desire and all of those things melding together. That sounds similar to what you're saying, Judy.
Yeah. I mean, it's quite fascinating, and I don't think we understand our capacity, our energy systems very well as humans, and therefore we think we can just keep going at anything if we really have to, if our family needs us or our workplace needs us or something. And then I bring it back to real estate, and there's so much burnout. And often it's because they're just being told to do something one way instead of looking at different ways and tapping into what's better for them. It's just like,
Mm.
this is what you have to do. So,
Yeah, interesting, isn't it? I think the feminine working in the masculine world as well makes a difference there, right? Like if you're a woman working in a male environment, I worked at a business coaching company. I did a stint for 6 months last year, and it was really interesting because they do all the disc profiling, they do all of the Myers-Briggs, and they do all of this other stuff to tell us where our genius zones are and all of these pieces. And I said to, because I was literally working in an office that was almost all women, most of them either, there was one younger woman, but otherwise everybody was kind of perimenopausal or beyond. I'm like, at some point, we really need to put where in our cycle we're going to get our best out of us, right? Because we're cyclical monthly, not just in it. It's not just where's our genius zone. It's where have I got capacity and energy to be growing right now, or to be producing, or to be harvesting, or like where are these spaces within our cycle as well? Um, I know
we're
that's probably
complex,
not.
aren't
Yeah,
we? We're very
very.
complex.
That probably wasn't what you were looking to talk about, Paul, but tell us what you were going to say.
That's in my cycle. But it's so true. Like I talk in that, not so much that the just on the female scale, but in cycles of life. Like to part of my coaching is about learning where your energy is in that cycle and to acknowledge it and to accept when you're not in your genius zone. And because a lot of times, and that's, I guess, societal is saying that you must keep going, but there's moments where you just switch off, yeah, and you feel like you're in a void, and then we guilt ourselves for being in there, and then our energy drops even more, and then we go into this depressive state of like, oh, I'm hopeless, I can't do anything, nothing's working. But if we get to recognize more often than not, and again, like as you said, Philippa, like it's awareness of where we're at in our cycles of what we do when we're inspired. It's like I've sort of come to this point where you get to this void and then you get frustration, and you're like, as soon as you let go in that moment of the frustration, you drop into it's almost of a letting go space, and then your energy peaks up again, because to recognize that you're in that space helps you to detach from the, I guess, having to be resilient and push and push and push. Like you still keep doing the things what you need to do, but at a different level. You give yourself a bit more rest space. You give yourself, like I'm big for having a nap. I love my naps. Um, but it's also not only, it's not about the nap itself. It's what I learned through hypnotherapy and meditation and breath work is that you can drop yourself into your semi-sleep state. You can recover your body, and you do 5, 10 to 20 minutes of that rest. It gives you 3 hours more capacity in energy wise on the physical. So you're resetting your nervous system within that space. So I guess that's something that I do. Like when you first started the conversation about resilience, it's like the things you go through to get to the rest is sometimes builds the muscle. Like you don't have resilience from things in life and struggles and stress until you go through it sometimes. And and sometimes if you're a slow learner, you go through it a lot, and you hit the burnout button a lot of times. And
Hello.
um, and I guess that's how I learned as well, because there's too many times that I just pushed, running businesses and working for other people. Um, People pleasing, and you just go beyond your capacity until your body says nope, no more, shut down.
Yeah,
And I
that's
see this a lot.
42.
Yeah,
That's the big one that comes in.
yeah.
Give you enough hints and you don't take them and then bang.
You can't do much about that. They just keep going. I do a lot of work with school teachers, and they're like the real estate, like they're massive for it. Like they push and serve and offer so hard throughout their term, and then every sort of conversation we have, so your first day of your school holidays, what happens? Bang, they get sick for their whole holidays
Yeah.
until they have to go back to work and then they get better again. So they miss out. But that's their nervous system going through the roof the entire time. They've got so much load on them and so much pressure to not only the information and the curriculum they have to teach, but also of dealing with so many personalities and behavior types throughout that time frame that you don't have the option of switching off because they're in this state of teaching and monitoring and in awareness that they're in fight or flight pretty much every day. And then
Yeah.
they don't get to sleep much either. And that's a big part. So yeah, it is a big challenge that's happening, not happening, but I think there's more awareness around it now in workplace well-being and mental health is coming forward slowly, but it's coming. And I think, yeah, the more aware we can get and offer simple practices to do the work and reset your nervous system during the day, a lot more people won't hit that burnout space because they're regulating on a regular basis. And
Mm.
that's what we teach the teachers is like continue the work throughout the term, not at the end of the term.
I
I
think
wish
when
you were
we
around, Paul, when I was a teacher because I hit burnout.
Yeah.
And back then, chronic fatigue was not known. It was like it's in your head.
Yeah.
So it was a real struggle. And exactly that. I'd get through the week and then sleep all weekend and then go again.
Yeah.
And so I know exactly what you're talking about. And I'm really pleased that there's people like you around that can educate them because, some of them don't even go to the bathroom during the whole day because they just put that off because they're making sure that everything's going smooth with the kids.
Yeah.
Mm.
Crazy.
There's a lot of pressure, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's interesting when we teach the teacher, whether that's in, teaching teachers or teaching parents or teaching leaders, what we then are able to do is move that through to the next space, and I'm really passionate about us supporting and teaching those who are bringing on the next wave, if
Mm.
that makes sense. It's,
Yeah.
it's my whole business is structured around that, virtually all of them, right? So it's but the interesting thing I think um about that is where did we as a so my major's in sociology, right? I actually am really interested in how do we even get here,
Mm.
right? Because once we understand how we got here, we know how to move that moving forward. And I think if we go back, I mean, school teaches us as individuals that we just have to do what we're meant to do, regardless of whether we feel like we have capacity or anything else. It's not actually teaching resilience. School itself, right from primary school, teaches us to that our capacity is decided by somebody else, and whether it's our capacity to go to the, when do we need to go to the toilet, when do we need to eat, when do we need to sleep, all of those things are dictated to us by somebody else. And so we have all of these mechanisms within, and up until very recently, one of the beautiful things about COVID was workplaces all of a sudden discovered that they could actually, have people work from home and have a hybrid type scenario. And, not everybody needed to be in the office being micromanaged and watched all the time in order to make sure they did their job, that we can be adults. And I think, but up until then, it was very much you know, you entered the work environment and you went to that space and you had your little 10-minute break here and you had your 10-minute break there and you had your 1 hour here, and all of those pieces were about telling us our capacity
Mm.
and then requiring us to be resilient when our capacity was stretched. But then not actually honoring that there was, that sometimes capacity doesn't look the same as as what everybody else thinks. I remember when I was a business manager at a car yard, one of the one of the women who'd preceded me, she used to work flat chat for 3 weeks and take a whole week off. And she did extraordinarily well because she'd figured out what her capacity required and how she could do what she needed to do. And she'd just go hard for 3 weeks and then go home for a week and obviously rest and recover and do whatever she needed to do. And that worked for her. Um, and because she had great results, they rewarded that, right? If she hadn't been performing, they probably wouldn't have. But how often are we not creating the balance required? How often are we not uh, supported to figure out what our capacity looks like, what our rhythms look like, what our energy looks like? We're told if we don't do something that's on our list, it's procrastination.
Mm.
What if it's actually our innate system saying, um, actually, that's not a you job, that's a somebody else job, and somebody else would froth on that, you should give it to them. And Dan Sullivan talks about that, right? That procrastination's not laziness, it's your system saying, that's not your job. Right? That belongs to somebody else who would love to do it. You sit here over in your genius zone and spend your time there. But we're so busy building resilience and extending capacity that we're not actually even looking at what's somebody's genius zone, what's, like you're talking about, Judy, if somebody's got, if somebody works really well in a certain space, and that's the way that they're going to grow a real estate business that actually lights them up, great. They should be doing more of that, not less just because it didn't work for the guy who started the business 30 years ago. Do you know what I mean? Like, or because he never even tried it and he just did it this way because that's what he was taught. I think all of these things come into us actually honoring and just even sitting with the questions, sitting with, if I changed this right now, if I was to honor my capacity in this moment, how would I need to change things in my life and what would that mean? And what might it open up for me? If my energy was being put into something in this particular way. Um, is it all very interesting? And and I think maybe some of what came for me or how it sort of happened, I had a daughter in hospital a few weeks ago, and we spent about 5 days there. And she's 21, but she's neurodivergent, and so she does really well in most of her daily life. She can manage and cope, but put pain, uncertainty, fear, lots of strangers in an unusual environment, and you have somebody who needs extra support, right? And so I was there with her, and a lot of the medical staff, you could tell they decided that I hadn't built her with resilience and enough capacity to deal with this on her own at 21, and that was her problem. But actually, it was a matter of me responding to what I knew her resilience and capacity was in that space.
Mm.
Um, and I also recognized when I got home. So we got home and she wanted some toast. I went to put the toast on, and then her boyfriend said, "Do you want a toastie instead?" And she's like, "Oh yeah." Like, she hadn't eaten for days because of this surgery and all these things. And so I pulled the toast out and I put it back in the bag, and then I went, actually, because he went to take over, I said, "Actually, can you put that piece of toast back in? I might have that." And he said, "Why don't you just leave it in there?" I said, "Because I wasn't thinking about me. I was still very much in what does she need mode." And he gave me a hug and he said, "You're a good mum and I've got it now. You can let it go." And I realized what I'd been carrying in that moment for a period of, like, for quite a while, for days on end. Like, we'd been in and out of hospital for about 7 days. And I'd been carrying all this piece, and it was a lot. And then I had to shift. I actually had to shift into, okay, I can put that down. And so I had a little cry. I got a cuddle from a couple of my kids, and I put it down but my nervous system actually needed to shift from that space of being resilient and sitting in what I was holding, and I wouldn't change it. I did what I needed to do, but then I was able to come back to calm.
Mm.
And that shift between being resilient and then putting it down and moving into, all right, I don't have to do that anymore. I can now just motor along. And I gave myself some rest and I had a long ass bath because that helps. For me, I love that water being held in that space. But so I did a process of letting those pieces go and shifting. But if we don't even know that that's required of us, if we don't know what our nervous system needs in order to be able to reset and rest, I mean, for you, Paul, it's sleep, right? That it's not, I can't do naps. It's not, I wake up feeling groggy and it just wrecks me. So I'd rather go to sleep early, right? Um, so, and have a bath, so I know what I need. But I think a lot of us are just so busy pushing and pushing on to the next thing, thinking that it's resilience, and it's not. It's stuckness.
I think even when we're aware, we still many times just push to the side because we haven't got time
Mm.
to stop and recharge. It's a bit like, I don't remember that Seinfeld episode where they had the car and Kramer just kept going to see how far he could go without filling up. Maybe I'm showing my age here.
No, no, no. It was a good show. It was a good show. It was a good show. Yeah, you're right. Awareness doesn't always prompt us to action
But you
or to
need the
change.
awareness before anyway. So you're not going to do it if you're not aware.
It's true.
You might not do it even when you are aware, but there's probably a 100% chance you're not going to do it unless you just stumble on it if you're not aware.
Well,
Yeah.
as you say, like even when you are aware, you may go through it, but then you hopefully catch yourself sooner, and that's where the tools come into that. But it's interesting going back to where you started talking about the system, the schooling, and then finishing up in the workspace or wherever we are. It is taught in such a way that, like, yeah, you eat when you're told, you go to the toilet when you're told, you've got to hear the little bell and you salivate sort of moment. And then any subject, it is cookie cut to be for everyone. There might be the academic that doesn't like arts and crafts, or the creative doesn't like the maths, yet they get judged on their ability to do all these things that aren't in their line of genius. They're just, and then you're made to feel even worse because people start judging you. Like I'm seeing it with my kids at school now. They're in year 3 and year 2, and that stuff's happening. They get 8 and 9 roundabouts, but it's quite scary to actually be aware of that system and now seeing that replaying in such a degree that it does turn into conformity and control. So when your nervous system does get into that space of awareness that something's wrong, it's like, oh no, this is how it's done. It does it automatically because we've been programmed in such a way for so long from a young age that it's just normal to push through, do the things you don't like that aren't in your lane. And when you start to try and break out of that, it's a hard struggle, that your mindset. I know for myself, transitioning out of trades to do my work, my creative work, what I do now was so hard because my folks were like, my original thing, I wanted to shape surfboards. And then I went and did some work experience, like in my own time, like during school holidays, because that wasn't a thing at school. You didn't do that. You do trades. And then even my folks were like, go and get yourself a trade first, and then you can go and do the thing you like, which I did. And then I got stuck in that work sort of system and the safety and all the things you think are what life is meant to be when you're doing your work. But if you try to step out of that, again, and this is, I guess, some of recognizing triggers, your nervous system goes, no, not safe.
Yeah.
Pull yourself back into it. Find your cycle, not safe. go back. Get excited doing something you love and then pull back, because that barrier of safety transitions in your body and in your mind and all your systems that are there to protect you at a subconscious level. And now for anyone that is just doing life and just in that system, to even think about stepping out and doing something different beyond burnout is, until it's too late, it doesn't really happen that often.
When I was teaching, Paul, I actually I was one of those teachers. I was lucky I was in a very progressive school in Canberra, where we could be called by our first name. And
Yep.
then I moved to another school, and it was on the first day, it was a student-free day, and I'm sitting there as the new kid on the block. And I just said something about, oh, the children at North Ainslie always call me Judy. And a pin could have dropped of, 30 people sitting around this Chinese, big round table. And then the principal says, you don't get respect out of that. And I just said, well, you don't get respect from a name, you have to earn it.
Yeah.
And then nothing was said. So I had 2 days where children came. I told them that they could call me Judy, and you could, oh, wow, this is pretty cool. And I was the youngest by about 15 years too. So I think that sort of kids are thinking this is cool. About 2 days later, I got the assistant principal came in and he said, oh, Gary wants to see you. So I went up and I said, what's wrong? And he said, oh, look, Tony, the principal, he doesn't like this fact that you're just calling yourself Judy. He needs you to have a title. So I looked at him, turned around, went to walk out, looked back over my shoulder and said, Lady Judy will do just fine. But I was one of those teachers that if the kids wanted to go and have something to eat, bring it back, share it if you've got something that you want to share. You can leave your hat on as long as you turn it around so I can see your face, let's be a little bit more liberal. And that's why I got out of it, because I was fighting the system. So I just went, I'm out, tapped out. But I loved it. I loved it, but I just couldn't compete with the system that was just training children to be one way. And that's just because of the Industrial Revolution. That's why that started. It was to get people into factories so they, worked at a certain time. They knew what to do and they just followed the rules.
Mm.
I find that quite interesting, because it's been coming up a lot lately about that system that was set. Like the ability of the people who created that, or the psychology, or the what they knew to create that across the world. I'm sure it's not everywhere, but the majority of the world is in that system.
Yeah.
Like, how did they come up with that? And it's not only the schooling, it's in the foods, it's in the waters, it's in the air, it's in the things you read in the newspaper or the TV or back on the wireless, whatever it was. The system was created and blanketed. Even the food system, which I know JFK Jr. is now flipping that. Before it was like breads and cereals and all the rest of it and meat at the bottom. Now it's like the other way around or something. But even how we eat and digest controls our nervous system and our brain mind capacity to be able to think beyond what the system tells you to do. And I find that intriguing but scary and what's the word? When people are deceitful, people are got the alternative sort of motives behind what they do. I find that quite full on to actually try and delve into. So capacity and resilience within that space is breaking out of that system. Is that the contrast that we need now in this world?
I think so.
Yeah.
The disruptor.
Yeah, I think we have to become, and this is the beautiful thing about how it ties in with the Backyard Peace Project, right? It's about going, well, hold on, because we could go hard on conspiracy theories right now, or but this is ancient, right? It's always been about power and control, and you can go all the way back to having, to medieval times. You can go back to the Catholic Church. You can go back to all of those spaces that have for a very long time controlled information, controlled how those things happen. And we're in a space now where information is not lacking. You can find information about almost anything, abundance of it. What's missing right now is guidance, right? It's guidance, it's knowing who to trust. And so if we distill all that down and we go, well, who do we trust? Ultimately, if we do the work on ourselves, if we honor that idea of the backyard peace project and do our own stuff, if we are at least aware and in tune and can acknowledge our own pieces of that, we then can impact the bigger story in at least our own backyard and in our own small ways to start with. And we can bring up the next generation to understand their nervous system, their capacity, honor their own bodies, etc. And for me, I feel like that having 4 neurodivergent children, they're actually really good at listening to themselves. It's almost like, and I think this might be somewhere where, because I don't think like neurodivergence isn't new, right? We've always been different to each other. We just decided to set the world up for neurotypical, and 300 years ago, if you were a kid who had ADHD, you would have just been the kid who, hung out in the farm or rode horses or did that sort of stuff rather than go and be a clerk somewhere in a bank, right? Like you would have just followed what was naturally right for you and nobody would have, and it would have just been the right thing for you to do. Following your talents, your passion, everything else. But we've changed the world to have these constraints, which don't then, that don't optimize everyone.
No, not everybody fits into those boxes.
No, and schools like that too, right? School's only good for about 30% of kids. The rest don't fit. But we're trying to mush them in and they're making it their problem.
And the teachers don't fit either.
Yeah. 100%, right? I think it's not a new problem in lots of ways. The idea that we're not that we're being controlled or that we're being fed certain information, but what is relatively new in the grand scheme of things is the post-industrial revolution and all of those pieces that then started to ask us to be resilient and extend our capacity beyond what it was naturally designed for, and we used to have seasons, right? Like if you were on a farm, you had seasons of harvest, seasons of planting, seasons of rest. All of those pieces were seasons within your life. And we don't have that anymore at all. In many ways, most of us don't have any rest periods where we can just stop. I mean, ask most women about what happens at Christmas time, and all of the tradies are sitting on their bums having 3 weeks off, and the whoever's in charge of Christmas is not right. They are flat chat, getting all the presents, doing all the wrapping, getting all the food, doing all the cooking, doing all the organizing and the managing of different people's energies in the room, and all of those other pieces are being done. So we're not even resting together, and having moments of reconnection with those, real reconnection and real just sitting with nothing,
And into busyness, as opposed to holidays.
Yeah.
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 And that's a big part of like the disconnection. Like sort of expanding with that is the transition that's happening at the moment in society is the people recognizing how disconnected they are from self, from others, from family, from what they actually have joy in their life. So many people are like that I talk to that going, they can't even remember the last time they were actually happy. Like, where are we living? We're in such an abundant space, such an abundant world, that the joy is gone from that because we're not following those things. And if we want to be out on the farm, looking after the farm, or if we want to be the clerk, or whatever that sort of space is, the choice is no longer given as an option. It's like you must do this because you need to pay your bills. Society is pushing and pushing and pushing people into as much work as possible so they can just live. But then when they get to live, they stop and they go to sleep, or they numb themselves with TV or drinking or whatever, just to distract out of the pain that they're in.
Yeah, God, you
And I
can really
think,
see the hamster wheel, can't you? I can see the hamster wheel in my mind. Just
yeah,
get
yeah.
on it, go for it.
And I think that's what's happening now is there's a lot of confusion around that, which is creating a lot of stress and overwhelm, more so because things don't match to that old system, or people can see that some of it breaking down to a degree. And so that's creating uncertainty in a lot of people, like what happened when the world went into lockdown during that COVID stuff. Like the uncertainty in that space, the energy of people and their capacity to, they were just in survival mode. And some people took that to the extreme. It's like, get out of my way, I'm coming through. I don't care about humans anymore. I'm in survival mode. And
Yeah.
it's a hard space. And so, like talking into what you're saying with the Backyard Peace Project is starting with self, bring that awareness in, and then we can shift into then expand.
Mm.
It's like the plane analogy, putting the air mask on, put it on you first and then save the world.
Yeah. And that's not selfishness. It's actually the most selfless thing you can do is honor that you have a capacity that has a limit, that you require stuff too. Because again, if we're parents, if we're leaders, if we're coaches, whatever we do in our life, we are modeling for someone. And if we're not doing it, we're actually not, first of all, we're not being perimenopause brain, congruent, right? But we're showing them that we can say something and that's okay, but we're not actually doing it. So if we're not doing it, how did they actually take what we're saying seriously?
Yeah.
And then they won't do it, especially kids, right? Especially kids.
Mm.
Especially when the information that's coming in is verbal is very small anyway, in percentage wise. So if you're saying something but doing something different, then it's not going to land.
Yeah.
No.
As they say, your energy enters the room before you do.
Yeah.
So whatever that capacity is, this is a big thing why we started working with the teachers, because originally started with the children because the teachers said they need help. And so we went in there and then we saw the teachers was so stressed and overwhelmed that the kids were just reacting to their energy.
Yeah.
And you probably would have seen that too, Judy, is you walk in tired, broken, and lethargic, the kids like to press that button a little more and stir you up. Because for whatever reason, that's a natural sort of reaction. Yet, if the teachers are showing up regulated, they can bring that space, and your energy and your breaths and your heart rate can bring the whole room into that central space. And
that's a universal law of physics, right? That's the law of entrainment.
yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter whether you believe in it or not. It's a universal law and it's happening, right?
Yeah.
It's just a matter of whether you want to be in charge of it or a room full of 6-year-olds.
And
Yeah.
throw into that a windy day, Paul.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Kids and animals all go berserk.
Totally. I
Yeah.
feel like I even feel that too, right? It's so much extra stimulation, the wind, right? It's just another, like, I don't love the beach because the beach has sand and wind, right? Feels like too much stimulation to me. Right? So I can do it in small pieces, but like we again, that's a capacity thing, right?
Mm.
If there is too much stimulation, our capacity, you've only got so much bandwidth, right? We talked about my computer shutting down on me because I had like 300 tabs open. And that's a capacity thing. There's only so much capacity that even an incredibly powerful computer has. What makes us think that we don't have capacity and that doesn't fluctuate? It might not fluctuate in a computer, but it certainly fluctuates in a human being who has a nervous system and who routinely gets different sleep levels, who routinely has different hormones running around, who routinely has different demands on their time and other people who impact that, you
Mm.
know. And then we think we don't have a capacity, like that our capacity isn't fluctuating or isn't something we need to think about. I think, you know, we need to, as well as being resilient, we actually need to know when to say enough is enough. I've got as much as I can hold today, or in this hour, or in this 5 minutes, or whatever it might be. And I had to do this the other day. My kids were having a discussion, and they're three teenage girls, and so discussions don't always sound like discussions. Where they think it sounds like a discussion, I'm like, this feels actually like an argument, and I actually said to them, I can't. My nervous system today does not have capacity for you to do this here. I can't be like this cannot happen. I need you to stop. They didn't honor that in that moment, and I lost it. It took a little while longer, but I actually, for the first time in years, I I I lost it, and not but and I knew it was going to come because I could feel it, and I asked for concessions, and because they're you know still learning, they didn't give it, and it cost me and it cost them, and I have to learn a lesson from that too. But that it's wisdom to know when your capacity is at its limit. It's not
Mm.
weakness, you know. Um,
Absolutely.
hmm.
And it takes a lot to learn that, though. Like to find, because it's really easy to react. It's so easy. So everyone just flips out whenever. It's easier to do that than actually catch yourself, pull it back in, and assess the situation. And I think it's again, as humans, we like the fastest path to an outcome. And if you have to work harder for it, sometimes that gets bypassed at that level. And that's where, the subconscious, like the human body and the mind is like fascinating and amazing what it does without you thinking about it. And the things like going back to the procrastination, the system that it sets up for you to be safe without you knowing, but you think it's a problem when it happens, is the ability that who knows if we can ever tap into what we can really do. Not yet, not anytime soon. Like stress, anxiety, any emotion, how it gets created, how it comes through, where we get it from, what is it actually doing for us? To have to think of all those things and then pull the emotion back before we lose our shit, it'll take a while, and then we tend to stop from that. Um, and I think that's where do we get, and this is what I guess I love the breath work so much, is because it is the quickest and simplest path to bring yourself back into it, because it's working on that nervous system, it's working on your biology, it's working on the emotions. It's not the only thing, but it's a good start because you don't have to think much. Once you get that system back into a semi leveled space, then you do the thinking and processing and psychologizing all the details that it's all happening with that stimulation. But until that point, we need a quick a way or ability to shift as quick as we can. It's finding that shortcut and what works best for you. So many things out there.
Yeah.
Mm.
But isn't it great that we're now talking about it and it's becoming more mainstream? You know, you go
Yeah.
back 20 years ago, and even meditation was like, and breath work wouldn't have even been talked about, would it, Paul? Nobody would have been
No,
talking about
that's only the last maybe 5, 6 years where it's sort of got exciting and popular. And now that the big catchphrase is nervous system regulation, which has just
yeah.
always been around with all of those tools, your yoga, your meditation, your walking in nature. And now it's a catchy term. It's a new
Mm.
trend coming out. Nervous system regulation coaching.
Well, and isn't that the like? I mean, there are trends that kind of happen and they roll around, but I'm grateful that we're having this particular one, right? Like, you know, um, I created a tool called MumWise, and it helps mums in the moment. And my plan is to actually create one for teachers and you know, daycare workers and nannies and all the other people who are doing the same work, right? But the idea is because of that law of entrainment, if we don't actually think about regulating our nervous system, and people think regulation is to just sit at calm, right? But regulation is to be able to move in and out of stress responses and to have that,
Flexibility.
you know, to be able to respond like I did when I needed to be there for my daughter in hospital. I was in a heightened state of awareness. I was on alert. I was activated in my nervous system for that week. And but regulation isn't not being stressed or not having a response to something. Regulation is the ability to move backwards and forwards in those states so that you're not stuck in one state. It's, you know, and I think for a lot of people, and obviously working as a trauma therapist, most of the people who start with me are permanently, they've been in a state of high arousal for a really long time. I worked with a woman just recently. Her mother abandoned her for a year at 2. This woman has been in a state of heightened arousal for over 50 years, waiting for the next time somebody left. And that's a long time for your nervous system to be out of whack. And she would literally cry at everything we talked about. She just tears straight away, right? And we got to the end of that, and she was at calm for the first time in her memory. She was actually calm. And you know, we spoke over the week, and she's got all sorts of things happening in her husband's business and hers. And you know what? She's like, yep. And then back down again. Yep, I could do that thing. And then I just returned to calm. And for the first time, she's actually able to respond and reset. And that's regulation, right? Not just being calm. We're not meant to be calm all the time. We're actually if we were just calm all the time, if somebody came and tried to, you know, nick off with your handbag, you wouldn't respond, right? It's not how it's meant to be. That,
Exactly.
yeah, but that regulation being able to move in and out. And that's essentially what we're talking about with resilience and capacity, right? Resilience is part of that regulation, being able to respond and then reset. Very similar things, I think.
Mm.
Yeah, it's about the flexibility, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's
Bending, but not
so
breaking.
the stress term is like stress is bad. It's not. Anxiety is bad. It's not. It's a tool. If you get to tap into it, like this one of the programs is transforming anxiety because that's what I did. I transformed it from being debilitating into a superpower to get up on stage and talk in front of people. When prior to it was the complete opposite. I would hide in a corner, be quiet. But the transformation is using and recognizing that the energy's there. You can either bury it, run from it, hide from it, or you can utilize it into something that you love. And that's when the shift happens. And then different things in seasons in life are going to throw all these curveballs at you, and you might need more energy, and the stress can come in. You can energize your body. you need more clarity in your mind, bring that in. That's what these chemicals and emotions in our body create that space to be able to do the thing. Again, the body's doing all this stuff in an automated process most of the time. Yet if you can, again, go back to the breath, there's certain automated process that our body does that we can now utilize. And that is part of the regulation. It's like, all right, so this stress is too much. I've been in this state for too long, regulate it. All right, I'm in just tiredness and lethargy. I need to bring it up. Okay, regulate it. And that's the fun and the joy of bringing back empowerment to ourselves, understanding that we still have control within our system to be able to work in that space to give ourselves space to ease and space for energy and joy. And the more we can do that, the more we catch that, then the subconscious processes and behaviors and patterns then become on board with it and go, great, I know what to do now. And then becomes an automated process, which is fun.
Yeah.
Know which lever to pull and which button to press and all of that. And then the body,
Yeah,
we're working
exactly.
together here.
It's like learning to drive.
Yeah.
Well, thank you both so very much for your contributions and for being in this space with me and giving everybody all of your wisdom and knowledge. And I wanted to leave everybody with just one thought, and I'm going to read it because I wrote it down, but it's on the other screen, so I'm going to look over there. If you genuinely honored your real capacity this month, not your aspirational capacity or the capacity you had before that thing happened, but your actual capacity right now, what would you need to change? So I just want to leave people with that as we say goodbye. But it's an interesting question to ask yourself. It might keep you up at 3 a.m., but
A whole nother conversation there. Another hour. Let's go.
Thanks very much. We'll see you next time from the Backyard Peace Project.
Thank you.
So
See ya.